Hello everyone, welcome to the 5th episode of Vet Talks, the podcast hosted by the EVBB. We are today here with Sara Sechi, Executive Secretary at Don Bosco International. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Is this your first podcast?
In my life, not really. I've done many of them during my volunteering experience, European Solidarity Corps in Marseille.
We are already going back to your experience, but it's great. So, I mean, it is not your first podcast, but I'm really happy that we have you with us today because in our podcast, we explore a little bit the latest trends, what's happening a bit in vet, and we have a very good collaboration with Don Bosco, and we know that Don Bosco International is doing a great deal of work across the world for the advancement of vocational education and training across different dimensions. So really thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you for the invitation. My pleasure.
So let's start. First question is, just to present yourself a little bit, how did you end up being the executive secretary here at Don Bosco in Brussels?
Thank you for the question. I'm a daughter of EU mobility programs. So during my study, I was studying law at university, and we had good scholarship for Erasmus program. And during my 2 Erasmus traineeship mobilities, I have been introduced in the world of advocacy and NGOs here in Brussels, thanks to the experience at Don Bosco YouthNet in Leuven. And I always collaborate then with them as a volunteer for advocacy, so attending international meetings and so on. And I just get interest in this kind of world, but I was missing some language skills, so that's why the European Solidarity Corps in Marseille to learn French, and then I focus a little bit to have the combination of international relations with a master in international public affairs, and then through the network I got contact for the job offer.
I see. A very, very wide international background for sure. So first Italy, Marseille, then actually Brussels, but also Leuven you mentioned.
Leuven, Poland, my first
Poland
Erasmus
as well?
experience.
Okay.
Yes, so a bit of European eastern countries, the southern, and a bit the north.
Very, very wide experience, but here in Brussels it's true that we can find all of that. So all this international exchange is great. So, and how is it going with Don Bosco now? Everything good?
It's going great. I like the dynamic vibe that we can experience here in Brussels, plus multicultural teams, and I always like then also to be back in the Salesian environment. So I like that our office is a bit far away from the EU bubbles, so we can also be close to more a local reality.
Okay, tell us a bit more about your activities. So, because our scope as vet practitioners is that of empowering individuals. So, I would like to know a little bit more how Don Bosco is supporting that.
Okay, in empowering children and young people, we are definitely in line. What we do at Don Bosco International, we focus on advocacy in 3 fields. Okay. So poverty and social inclusion, that school to work transition, and this is the field in which we focus on vet, and we try to follow up and promote this topic at the European level, and then human integral development, in which we also have youth participation and a bit of ecology. But for what concerns vets, we try to bring in the European field the approach of Don Bosco in vocational education and training, that it's a very holistic one, a human-centered, based on a preventive system, in which vet becomes like a tool to not also empower them, but also then make them able to have a life project and realize this kind of social project as well.
I see, I see. So, I mean, this is something that we often hear because we had here at the podcast for different guests, empowering individuals, yes, but it's true that VET provides that kind of skill set that, let's say, support individuals not to become only like a learner or someone who's competitively skilled, but also to acquire those key skills that are key competencies in today's society, for example.
Absolutely. Like Don Bosco started his mission on VET like more than 150 years ago in the suburb of Turin with the aim of taking the children out of the street. Basically, the children that they were coming really from a vulnerable background and social marginalization.
Yeah.
So the aim was empowering them with skills that could fit also the job market, of course, because then the job was kind of source of dignity and is still a source of dignity for the person. But it's not like a simple mere we can say like utilitaristic or
not just the practical one,
aspect of reaching the competence, but also making able the young person to be in the final step of the training process, learning process,
to be
like citizens.
Yes, a fully fledged citizen, we could say.
Exactly.
It's true that now in modern times we look for workers that are more skilled, so that perhaps 150 years ago the challenge was different, was more than the empowerment was also a form of emancipation perhaps from conditions that were not favorable. But it's true that I think it's a very, very actual message also for now. I think it's a quite a central message for many, many workers that not only in terms of skills but also in terms of working conditions need to make a difference.
Absolutely. Like Don Bosco in Turin was the first that managed, promoted and achieved a apprenticeship contract for the young people and children he was following up, in which one of the conditions for the company was to have at least a day, that was traditionally the Sunday, of rest. Because was important not also, in the sense of like taking the time to rest itself for the person, but it helps to take care of this community dimension.
I see.
So to allow the person then to enjoy the time with the friends, with the family, or with the community of the vet centers in that case.
For example.
That then brings you the skills and awareness to take care of your community outside. And in this case, we have this dimension of citizenship.
It's a beautiful concept, for sure. So, and it brings me back also to what we said at the beginning, the human development, the integrated human development. So all these concepts interacting with each other, the education, the community service. And about this, something I think I would like a bit more to go in deep is, I know that, and for sure we mentioned it already before, the component of youth, the component of young people being involved. So not only in education, but through education into the civil society, into the civil work. And how are you supporting that?
Here we can connect a bit the concept of leadership.
Okay.
We really believe and we really care about child and youth participation because we believe that since we are children, we are able to express our needs, our demands, and some children, some young people, they have a vocation that is stronger to do it also for the peers. So in our approach, there is always this kind of attitude to make the children and young people aware they can make a change.
Okay.
That there is a way to do that, and the benefits that they can bring to their community. And how do we promote it? For example, at the EU level, there are some platforms in which it's more accessible to have an effective child or youth participation. And especially for us, it's important as the main target of the Salesian Don Bosco Vet Centers are the youth that is coming from vulnerable background, a risk of poverty, social marginalization. For us, it's a priority that we give a space in which they can have a voice for the ones they don't have.
Of course. And this is extremely important. But important in the time of now, for example, we're going towards the year of the European elections. More and more young people are facing the first time that they're going to vote. And probably this level of empowerment, this level of awareness of being able to make a change ever since you, even before becoming 18 or being able to cast a vote, I think it's very important.
Yes. And it's wonderful. I like it because when you have child and youth participation, the young person, the majority of the case, it's still pure. I mean, it's without our kind of limitation, even
being
in
skeptical a little bit.
Be skeptical, critical, but mostly of the time in a constructive way. So they are able to deliver a message of hope and growth, being critical, but
constructively.
Sincere, yes.
Yeah, sincere, definitely. And well, for sure, I think we should go very strongly into this direction. Any obstacles encountered so far?
Yeah,
there are some.
There are some. There are many. Like it depends. Like obstacles. Which kind of obstacles?
Let's say in involving them more. So I think that there's a great potential to be tapped. Potentially reaching out more into the youth, into their power, into their raw power, perhaps that they need to know how to use, how to develop, and how to actually channel into the different. But perhaps is it very difficult to engage them, to bring them really on the table? You know, as giving them more opportunities.
Yes. So in one side we have some limitation that they are related to like external opportunities. So access to the platform and so on. But in this case, we can provide our service and try to fulfill this gap. For example, between institutional initiatives and what we can offer. But not always in the vet centers, but also in the youth centers the Salesian have across Europe, one of the challenges, especially after the pandemic, it's sometimes the lack of motivation in young people. That it's not like a very strong lack of motivation itself, but it's the difficulty sometimes of finding a meaning to make this step more that allows us to get out of the comfort zone. So I think
also believing into a little bit the change.
Yeah, believe
that it will not just fall on us.
Exactly. And then the sense of loneliness that spread all over Europe, and it's really targeting in Europe it's targeting a lot the young people that in the majority of the case, compared to other scenarios in other parts of the world, they have some, at least like security standard. I mean, you come back home, in the majority of the case you have family, you have places to sleep and so on, that is not to take for granted in other regions in which we operate also with the vet centers. But this sense of loneliness, it's quite present, so all the issue of mental health. So now that the Salesian are trying to understand how we can like work more in this direction, and for this it's key creating a space and opportunity of meeting
for this loneliness, to address this aspect.
Yes.
I see. Indeed, it is perhaps focusing much on employability, one of the topics that we also mentioned before, and focusing on those skills that will be able to give you a job afterwards, but also to give you a place to go back to. So the sense of community that we emerged a little bit at the beginning when we mentioned the example of Don Bosco in Turin, I think this is something that should go hand in hand. Perhaps.
Yes, and especially it should like go hand in hand in a kind of training process, not only for the beneficiaries, so for the learners, for the students, but also for the educators and trainers.
Definitely.
Because this kind of holistic approach, it's in many vet centers also adopted for training them to understand the necessity of the young people, and to be able to have the skill to be a kind of guide in daily life and in crucial moment of the young person.
So true self-expression in a way, true self-expression. And I'm sure you have a lot of experience also working with disadvantaged groups, but also, let's say, migrants and refugees. So it's become common in Europe to having to deal with the challenges for young people, but for example, young people that have experienced more challenges than those that were perhaps born in Europe or did not have to endure such hardships, for example.
Of course, yes. So young people coming from like migrant background, and they also reach the status of refugees, are also part of the beneficiaries of the vet centers. And I'm really happy about this question because last October I attended the Salesian seminar on migration and refugee that was held in Malaga. And I had the opportunity to meet some of the beneficiaries, especially two boys. I mean, now they are like young men coming from Morocco. So they have done the typical like migration journey. They arrived in Spain, they entered in contact with the Salesian. And then they saw that the opportunity to build some skills was there through what is important is like through a targeted offer. I think that when it comes to young people that are part of categories that are particularly vulnerable, as the one coming with a migrant background, it's important to take into consideration, of course, like the situation that they experienced during the journey, I mean the country, the journey, and then the receiving country. So the personal, the cultural background, the religious background sometimes. And like in the vet centers, very often we are able to target the offer to like the learning process, the training process that takes into consideration this kind of peculiarities, characteristics, and to see them as an enrichment. But through their stories, I mean, now one is a mechanic and another is a policeman at the local level. So they were like successful examples, and it was very nice because they were like offering their service and help during the seminar, and you could see this sense of gratitude. Not only just for have received like a first assistance. I think this is in the mission of Don Bosco. It's very clear. It's not just about charity.
It's only the first step.
Because then there is all the follow-up in which we try our best, to empower like you as a young person to build your own life, and then at one point you will be, I mean, the one managing yourself and your future program, like possibility. But it's very important, and I noticed this kind of step in different countries and in different continents. Always like the fact that the young person needs to choose to be there. So it's not enforced. And even with children, like we just host, like we just launched the EU level as well, the documentary Canitas about a program in Santo Domingo that fight child labor through a program in which the children are taken out of street, and then they learn to read, to write, and then step by step, some of them they end up in the vet centers. But the first like step that is necessary is like the child's needs to choose to be there.
I see. It cannot be imposed as a process. It has to come both ways.
Exactly, because otherwise the results is not going to.
I believe this is important for all learners. We need to make sure that they want to learn, to make sure they understand how important it is, but not just because they have to.
Yeah.
I see that there are many very positive stories that you have witnessed, and this is very promising for all of our work. Is there any specific one that you would like to share with us today?
So there is something interesting that I also found in different contexts of Don Bosco vocational education and training, and it's part of the many successful story. I mean, I won't focus just in one specific person, but when it comes to the school to work transition, so when it comes to entering the job market after the training and learning process, one of the remarks I heard very often was the students and the learners from Don Bosco Vet Centers were really appreciated by companies because of reliability. Trust and reliability not only of the skills, so of the quality education provided by the vet center, but at the human level. Thanks to all this kind of human-centered approach that allows the Don Bosco system to achieve this kind of good results on the person himself or herself.
Individual. In the end, we are not just a sum of our own skills, because that does not amount to the person per se. So everything that comes afterwards is what really, I think, makes a difference between sometimes we say team workers or even more than that, because I think reliability is a key, not even competence, but a key characteristics of individuals, of colleagues or friends, or whoever it is in our lives, actually.
Yeah, and this particularly our attention to the person. I heard very interesting, good practices, especially when you are going to train people coming from migrant background or some categories of society in which companies or the job market can have bias on.
I see.
This is one of, for example, of the challenge. So, how in the vet centers we allow sometimes to overcome this bias and facilitate the access for them in the job market. That's something we see also in Europe very, very often. And what do? You create sometimes in the vet centers the moments of students and companies to encounter, meet and come together.
To fight the bias together.
Yes. Not really. I wouldn't say fight because it's kind of military language, but create the opportunity to have this kind of human contact. In which you first meet the learners, you see what they do, maybe they present what they do. They are opening days rather than sometimes next to the vet center you also have the youth centers in which you have cultural activities. So maybe then in the end of the day there is also cultural activities. But this kind of dialogue and proximity with the companies that should develop this trustful relationship, it's key.
Important, definitely. No, thank you for highlighting that. It's true that it's also perhaps for many of them it's the first encounter with each other. So it's true that they also learn how to speak the same language with each other.
Even if in the training learning process apprenticeship, internship, are extremely important, are focused. So that's how also we facilitate the transition into the labor market.
Sara, thank you very much for being with us today. Sara Sechi, Executive Secretary at Don Bosco International.
Thank you for the invitation.